and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. Today's special guest is Jayla, and Jayla and I are going to be talking about a lot of taboo topics such as homelessness, domestic violence, and postpartum. Jayla's also competing in the petite pageant system with me and really using her platform to show what she's been doing in her community, being a voice of hope, and how much she plans to be able to change in the next 5 and 10 years. So stick around and join me in this chat. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to jump into our chat.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm going to pass it off to you so you can introduce yourself to our guests and we'll get going.
Okay, well, hi, my name is Jayla Collins. I'm currently Miss Southern States Petite USA 2025. I'm 24 years old and I'm happy to be here.
Yay! Well, I think with that, people have been following me or listening long enough to know that that's how we were connected is through the petite system. I had posted in our Facebook group and said, "Hey, I want to hear more lovely lady stories." And there's so much life that we've all gone through, and I'm just so grateful that you're willing to share about your life and your story because you've gone through some pretty heavy things in life.
Yes, I think it's very important to talk about. And really, this is going to be the first time where I very much so elaborate on what happened. So I'm glad I have this opportunity. I'm glad that you're giving people the opportunity to share their stories.
Well, I am just honored and humbled to be able to hold that space for people and give you a platform to talk about it. I love talking about all things taboo. And as we're jumping on, so for those who aren't watching the video feed, you are wearing your beautiful sash with a very beautiful butterfly. So do you want to start in with your story on kind of how that became, and we'll just take it from there.
Sure. I guess I can start off from the entire beginning of my story. I'm sorry if it's long. For me, it all started when I was in college. I attended the University of Texas at Austin, and my second year, I ended up in a relationship with someone, and everything was, of course, fine at first. But once we came back home, my mom did bring to my attention that she believed the individual was an addict. And I was confused, of course. I've never seen anything like that in person, only in movies. And after that happened, after I figured that out, everything kind of went down. And going to the butterfly, of course, the color purple goes with domestic violence, and that's kind of where everything headed for me. It was very mental and eventually physical. And I was able to slowly make my way out of the situation, but it is something that now I'm choosing to advocate for. As someone who started pageantry, my first year was actually when all of this was happening. And I was homeless because of all of this happening. Of course, you can't really have stable places when things like this are going on, only because of the loud environment and of course the noises unfortunately that is going on. So yes, I was homeless during my first pageant and it was a very humbling experience. I would say it's unfortunate, but I actually did learn a lot. I learned that there is ways to make a change, that there is places to feel comfortable, and in pageantry I truly never felt happier than at that moment. And I was very happy to make fifth place that year, which I was not expecting. But I was extremely excited because when you're going through stuff of that nature, you really don't think that there can be a light at the end of the tunnel. But pageantry did become my light. And now I get to advocate for others now that I'm in a better space. I'm a mom now, so I get to advocate for my baby as well and get to just teach new things. And it's very exciting.
That's so interesting. I'm like literally sitting here thinking, okay, you were homeless and you competed in a pageant. So many different dynamics, so many different questions running through my head. I'm literally imagining this. like you said, with the relationship piece, right? You never seen someone with an addiction before except for in the movie. So imagining, how people who are homeless are portrayed in movies, right? And you got your fire over the can and you're trying to like air out your evening gown. Like I'm just this whole like movie scene is like playing in my head. And wow, like, first of all, that's freaking amazing that you still went forward and competed. So, if no one's told you that, I'm hoping that you've heard that before, but that's amazing that you still competed even through all of that. And now being able to use pageantry as a way to advocate for others, because I think domestic violence is one thing that we don't talk about a lot. I just had another woman on my podcast, Shawnee, and we were talking about, why do you stay? Like, why did it take you so long? Right? I'm not sure the timeline in your situation, but I'm sure that's even something you've heard, right? Probably even from your own mother who said, hey, maybe I don't really like this guy. Something's off about him. Is
No, for sure. Oh, go ahead. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, 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 you're fine. I was kind of passing it back to you, so that's great. So,
I was just going to say for sure, it took me 3 years actually. And I believe for me at least, it felt like I really didn't want to leave someone else in a vulnerable position to themselves. If I thought that I could help, if I thought that I could do something, I wanted to do that. But I couldn't because you really can't help someone that doesn't want to be helped at that moment. So it was a very interesting situation to go through.
oh, yeah. We talked a lot about the hope that things will get better, the shame of the situation. And that's another layer is this protective factor of the other person. Like not wanting to leave them in a vulnerable state is just, oh, like I relate. I've been through a situation myself and it's definitely it's hard and you feel like you are trapped and you feel alone and like nobody understands and almost like a I should have seen this coming because you start looking back in hindsight, right? It's good old 2020. So then you almost start blaming yourself. It's like this very vicious cycle where it's like, how the heck did I end up on this hamster wheel, right?
Yes, entirely. And it's kind of scary the way that you can't necessarily get off the ride. You just have to keep going, try to figure it out. And it's very true as well. It does feel like, or at least in the moment, it felt like nobody really was trying to even understand what was going on. I felt very alone in the situation.
So, what would be the best advice that you could give to somebody listening who maybe suspects that someone in their life is going through a domestic violence relationship? Like, what might have been something that you could have really used during that time now that you've processed this and you're able to look back?
I believe I really could have used more support. It felt like they didn't want to be there because it became exhausting, which I do understand completely. But if you could just take the time to put yourself more in the other person's shoes, have a little bit more depth behind what may be going on, or even have that conversation, that real sit down where you're really engaging and trying to understand exactly what's going on so that the other person doesn't feel that unnecessary isolation so that they can have someone else there and maybe even that might make them leave quicker.
That's a good point. I remember one of the people who was closest to me at the time and the relationship that was very violent on my end, she was very logical. And it was just like, why, like, leave. Like, clearly, this guy's not good for you. You should just leave.
Mhm.
But I don't feel like she ever took the time to actually hear what was really going on. And I remember, so I was in a sorority, and this person says this to me, and we had like a big mandatory chapter meeting that evening. And I was like, I can't go. Like I am a wreck. I am not doing well. And she said, if you're not there, I'll make sure you're fined for it. And I thought, you're supposed to be helping me and guide me and support me. And you're
Mhm.
not doing that as a human to human, but now as one of my sorority sisters, you're saying you're going to make sure I'm financially fined for not showing up on a day where I don't feel right. And I remember coming in, I had like, the big old chunky sunglasses on, because of course I'd been crying, I hadn't been sleeping. There's like, I looked like a wreck. And I remember multiple people just like staring at me and some people saying, "Hey, are you okay?" And I said, "No, I am not."
Mhm.
And a couple people asked me like, "Well, why don't you leave?" And I'm like, "Oh, because this person told me if I'm not here and if I leave that she's going to find me." And in the moment, I was just so angry at that person. But obviously, like now, I'm not even saying her name. I'm not referencing her position or anything like that because I'm not trying to. That's in the past. However, that was the moment for me was here's somebody who I finally said something to somebody. And that was the reaction I got. I think one thing that as human beings, we're fixers, right? We don't like to see people in pain. Just as you had expressed, I didn't want to leave someone in the situation.
Mhm.
So really recognizing if we're that person, if we're the fixer, if we're the logical thinking one, maybe even recognizing that and connecting someone that you can clearly see is hurting to someone else that can be more of the support system that
Mhm.
would have probably been beneficial for you, right?
Yes, I completely agree. And I'm sorry that you went through that. That's very unfortunate to hear. I I really don't like those situations where people put you in a bad place when you're already in a dark place. I feel like it's so unnecessary, which is another reason why I want to help other people because you're right, there's sometimes people that really need someone else, someone to advocate for them, someone to be their voice when at the moment they feel voiceless.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Is when you're already in the thick of things, feeling like you can't speak up or you've tried to speak up the best you can in that moment because you don't really know what to do because you're having all the emotions and just everything is ah. I love that you're saying I've grown from this and you can hear it in your voice and in your presence just how much you're like, yeah, this was my past, but I'm making such a beautiful future for not just myself, but my child and other women. What are some of the things that you're involved in that you're able to help other women who have gone through similar situations?
Well, currently, right now, I'm just taking the steps to volunteer or donate with places like the West Side Pregnancy Center here in my city, or the other places that we have available. I know we have another shelter that specifically takes women and their children when they're coming from certain situations or when they're homeless. I also do plan on opening my own business coming up to where I can help anyone really. It's to help anyone. I do want to start off with women who are postpartum. I do know that there's a lot of struggles that come with that as well, just as someone who did give birth. And that's kind of a first step for me. It's a little bit easier to jump into. And eventually, I do want to open my own homeless shelter towards anyone who may be experiencing a tough situation because even men go through domestic violence. There's even teenagers. So I really want to help in a lot of big ways eventually. But for right now, I just do donations and volunteering.
You're so future thinking. You're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this too, which is amazing. You brought up another very common taboo topic that not enough people talk about is postpartum. Is there some more you'd like to share about that? Maybe your own story, and we'll dive into more ways people can help there.
Yes. So for me, being pregnant, I already developed preeclampsia at that point when I was coming towards the end. And when I was going to give birth as well, I also had something going on with my body that made me easier to bleed out. Fortunately, I am still here, and I did have to have an emergency C-section. And the one thing that I remember the most was how difficult the recovery was. I remember my doctor telling me after I gave birth that I needed to walk, and I stood up and my whole body was burning and it felt like everything was going to fall out. And I remember also feeling very weak and it made me upset because I wanted to get up, I wanted to be strong, I wanted to hold my baby, and I truly couldn't. So the difficulties with that, and to think about postpartum depression, which I am fortunate to not have experienced, but I know how difficult that definitely can be. I've seen a lot of stories, unfortunately, after I gave birth about babies passing, about mothers having the most difficult time, about some mothers not even getting the proper need that or proper care, excuse me, that they need after they give birth that resulted in that death. So those tough situations and experiencing just how difficult it even was to reach my hands out and hold my own baby, I feel like it's very important that those women get the proper care that they need after they give birth, or even the men get the proper care that they need if they happen to be in a situation where it's just them. I feel like it's very important. And that's something that I take to heart now as a mom more than I did ever because I didn't understand it as much before I gave birth.
That's a really good point, is that the support after a birth, it's very different for everyone, right? Some people have family support. I remember my mother sharing a story. She didn't have that. She didn't have family support. And she said when my oldest brother was born and he would scream and scream and scream and cry and cry and cry, and she felt like she just couldn't take it anymore, she would lock herself like out of the apartment because she was like, I just need a minute. I need time away, let him cry it out, trying to figure it out. But that she was alone. My parents are both active duty military. They had just moved here from Europe, and she didn't have a support system. She didn't have family, and it was just finding ways to just make the everyday count. And I I have not had my own child. I have a stepson, but what I kind of relate a lot of this to is becoming a caregiver for my husband that requires 24/7 care, is that sleep deprivation. If if anyone has ever had to like miss a night of sleep and you felt like you were on top of your game, I don't believe that's true. I think all of us can at least relate to the sleep deprivation, but newborns like to steal sleep from everyone. So whether mother or, like you said, father, like the whole household isn't doing well because everybody is making sacrifices to just try and function with this new human that they're trying to build and grow in this family. So what are some of the things that maybe helped you when you were going through that massive deprivation of sleep time frame and those initial stages of, one, you had emergency C-section. What, like, okay, you can't pick up a lot of things. You can't bend. There's so many things that are your on restrictions, but hey, you just had a baby. So what were some of the supports that you had or things that helped you? And then maybe what were some of the things that you didn't have that you could see being beneficial had you had them?
Well, I was lucky enough to have my partner with me. He was really the main person doing everything. Even when I tried to stay awake, sometimes I would just pass out because I'm going through a recovery and, everything that's going on. So I was lucky enough to have him there, and he was sleep deprived, I will say. That was a very difficult time, a time of trying to understand each other, a time of trying to understand what the baby needs. And it made things very hard. I would say I'm not exactly sure what more I could benefit from. Maybe just more assistance on both of our ends, just so that we both could probably get that sleep and then get enough help afterwards, take care of the baby. Or, yeah, I'm not too sure. I think the step towards getting more help from others would be beneficial to anyone during that time. Even if you're not alone, like I said, I had my partner, but it was still very difficult. It was a time of extreme difficulty. That's really all I can say. Having a baby is hard. As much as I love her, it's difficult.
Well, and leave policies are very different, right? We've had some major changes over the past 5 years, and I think that's something that we don't talk about often enough either, is that how much time off does the woman get, but how much time off does the guy get? Because there was this misconception that for men, and I heard this in the military, like, well, you're not the one who had the kid. It's like, yeah, but then who's taking care of the one who did have the kid? Like, what does that look like? So I think just in general, I'm a big advocate of huge reform in how we do work. You know, the 40-hour work weeks, the leave policies. I think there's so much we could be doing better. And especially when you look at other countries, and there's lots of other studies about, you know, work-life balance and all that. So that I could go the whole soapbox on there. But I think one thing as we're talking about this, like you said, more help. And for people to recognize and remember when you first have the baby, it's all sweet and everyone wants to come see the baby. And maybe they're bringing you food. And maybe they're like, I'll hold the baby for a little bit. Maybe you can take a 30-minute nap. But that lasted for what? Maybe a month? Maybe? So it's remembering, like, hey, maybe checking in like 3 months from now when all the newness has worn off. Because a lot of us we go about our own lives, right? We do. It happens. We all have 99 things going on, but even just setting a reminder in your phone, hey, check in, you know, see if, you know, it's 3 months out. I'm sure even just providing dinner 3 months out could be a lift that day of maybe you haven't slept in 3 days.
Yes, and I totally agree. Two things for that situation for sure. It's almost like people forget eventually after they do get that little small time, and then it's just like, oops, what next, you know? And even then, a lot of the times I didn't necessarily exactly at the moment want someone to necessarily hold my baby. I maybe wanted something help with something else or help with a different situation or maybe I needed help. But that wasn't asked for and that is something that is so important in my opinion. There's so many other factors that could possibly be the reason why they need your assistance. But sometimes all you have to do is ask. Don't just assume it's the baby itself. And going back to the leave, that's also an important conversation that sometimes I don't even really think about. But I didn't even get paid leave. So I was on leave for a pretty short amount of time because I needed the money for the place that I was staying at. And I even took it right before I gave birth. I was working the entire time. So that's also a conversation that I think is important to have, especially financially, financial support for some mothers as well. It can be very difficult to even know what's going to happen in the future because of you needing to take the time off. And I know some parents don't even get to take that time off. They have to send their child straight to daycare because they have no choice. And that's another unfortunate situation.
Oh yeah, 100%. I had a client that she had gone back to work at an unbelievably short time, but her husband had suffered some medical conditions, which he was unable to work, but
Mhm.
he also at times was unable to care for the baby because of his medical condition.
Mhm.
So she was constantly having to leave work to take care of the baby, but then she's like, but then we can't afford to live. So it's this just it's a double-edged sword where you're just fighting to survive, and that goes into like a whole lot of other complications, right? As we talk about this, like all of our dynamics and our, you know, the living paycheck to paycheck, our societal our economy, we could just like go into like a whole mess on that kind of thing too. Um, but I do want to not completely derail us on that venture. So your platform through the pageant is you're really helping promote this support for women who have gone through similar situations as you have. What is something that you're really hopeful for being able to compete in the petite system? And maybe what are you most looking forward to for the competition?
Being able to compete, I'm really hoping to be able to reach more people. I know we all say it a lot, but I really do want to make a change and being able to reach a different amount of community, a larger voice to have is something that's really important to me. And the competition, I'm really excited to meet other women and hear their stories as well. Because as we know through my story, you never know what anyone's going through. And I would love to get to know everybody's background or the time that they're having now. I think it's very interesting to know about other people's experience.
That's one of the things I love about this podcast is being able to have a space for people to come and tell their stories because all of us have a story. We've all gone through some dark time in life and we're here today. So what can we do and how can we help inspire other people to still have hope and still fight for a tomorrow when maybe they're going through some of these situations that we've talked about on this podcast. I think I've learned so much in the pageant systems, and people are probably tired of me hearing me say this, that it's meeting the other women and the quality of people that are on a journey with similar interests. I think that's so fun is that you're going to be able to meet so many other women doing things that are similar but also different because we all have our own take on everything, right? So being able to say, hey, maybe there's three or four other girls in your division that also have something that's focused around domestic violence. How can you all partner together and really raise all of your voices up? Because if we keep things in the dark, if we keep things taboo, the darkness grows and that's where it flourishes. But if we're bringing these things out into the light, that's where we're going to really shine and make change. So I think it's really cool to get to hear how much you want to do and all these big initiatives that you have. Um, you are Miss Southern States. I'm assuming that you're still in Texas, but I guess
Yeah.
we didn't really go over that. Yes, you're still in Texas.
Yes, I'm still in Texas.
I have a lot of family in Texas, so not sure how close you are. I'm right above you in good old Oklahoma, so we're close geographically as well. But are we're competing in Chicago. Have you ever been to Chicago before?
I have not. I'm so excited. It's going to be so different.
Yes, yes, it's so exciting. I wonder if I know there's different, each division's doing something different. Some are doing different lives or get-togethers and having group chats. If you're able to get in a little early, have you made plans? What does that look like?
In terms of going to Chicago,
Mhm.
right now, I haven't made any plans with any other of the women just yet. We are in a group chat right now with all the Mrs. And then I have talked to the current Miss Petite USA as well. We did a little live together, but I haven't made any plans just yet. I don't even know where my head's at. I'm just so excited and trying to get everything together for the travel. And then I'm going to have my baby and my partner come with me so that they can watch me. So everything, I'm just excited for it all.
Well, that was going to be one of my other questions too, if you were going solo or if your family was coming with to support you. So that's really awesome. I know I'll be coming in a day early. I like my time to like zen and get my full night's rest. My husband's really great when I have something important to do. That's the night. That's the night where his brain is overactive, where his bowels are overactive. That is the night. It's just some weird aligning of the stars. So I've been telling myself actually for quite some time, like, I'm going to start getting a caregiver on the nights before I have to do something. And then recently I finally actually did that. And it was like one of the greatest gifts I gave myself. So I was like, I had somebody watch my husband and I got a full night's rest. This is magical. Well, there's definitely a lot to do in Chicago. So I hear. I say that not because I've experienced it. This will be my second time really going to Chicago. My mom was born close to there. So like as a kid we visited some family, but I don't really remember much of that. And I do remember the experience last year just being so magical as being able to meet so many people and watch and just support each other and see how much you can grow from all the glow, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things maybe on the prep level as you're preparing for all this that you have found that's really helped you grow maybe your mission as well as yourself?
Well, here in Texas, I'm also in El Paso, and I do go to a modeling class. In that modeling class, I do get to speak to other young girls and, talk to more people. Being able to do that is making it a lot better. And of course, in the classes, they help us walk, they help us figure out certain things that we're going to do. So that's been very helpful with all the pageant prep. And then I did want to also say I'm also going a day early because you're right. It's you need the time to get everything ready.
Yes, that's a great, really unique way to be able to mentor to other women. I know there's one other lovely woman in my division that she's doing modeling classes too, and I think that's just such a great way to connect with other people. And I'm just like, oh, that's such a cool way because you're reaching another audience. And I think that's what happens too is a lot of people have their platform and there's you're supposed to have your your target audience, right? You're supposed to have your person that you're speaking to, that you're serving, but at the same time, that person also fills all these other roles in life, right? So as you shared, mothers with postpartum, any woman you look at, that could be her, right?
Mhm.
Domestic violence survivor, any person you look at, that could be them, that could be part of their history or part of their future. So I think that's really cool that you're able to maybe step in and help guide and have these conversations before somebody has to go through that situation.
Yes, and it's absolutely, honestly insane how much other people are going through or have been through. And there was an experience, fortunately, through modeling where I was able to meet up with a bunch of title holders here in my state. And hearing everyone's story, the fact that so many of the people in the room went through domestic violence was actually so, it was shocking, but so, what's the word? It was just so interesting that we could all get together and have so many similarities and talk about these situations and learn from each other and talk about stuff that we can do for each other and for our community. And even with having the teens there and hearing their stories about suicide prevention mainly, which is something that is so sad to me. But the fact that they're able to advocate for it, the fact that they came back from it, it's so rewarding and special to even just get to hear about. They're so strong, and I love that.
Yeah, it's amazing and eye-opening how many people have gone through intense times, but that's not what our data says, right? So as a researcher, I love data, but I also love pointing out the flaws in data. So like you said, with suicide prevention, overdoses aren't ruled as suicides majority of the time, and that's a whole complex soapbox. But in the very, very short version of this is we lose about 350 people per day on average in the United States to a combination of suicide and overdose, which is all linked to pain. And oftentimes a lot of that pain is driven by things like abuse. It's feeling trapped, feeling like you have no way out, that you're better off dead than alive, that's your only way of escaping your pain. So all of this kind of ties into each other, right? Is because when you're experiencing hard times or like postpartum, same thing. You feel trapped and completely overwhelmed and overcome, and your body's not able to rest. It just did this like crazy miraculous thing, popped a kid out after like growing it inside of you, right? And now you're expected to just be fine. Like as if your body didn't just like open up into a whole nother galaxy. Now you're supposed to be fine. Also, be fine with no sleep. Like all those things are just like this combination that build and build and build and build. And as a society, I think we could all do a better job of looking at our fellow humans and just thinking for a second that they've gone through similar battles with hell that we have in life and maybe treating each other that way too. Because there's many times where in my journey with my husband, yeah, if it comes out like, oh, my husband has brain cancer, people are like so much more loving and willing to help me. But it shouldn't be like help me because my husband has brain cancer, right? I don't go about it that way. But I also think of like so many situations I've been in. There's a recent situation and the gentleman who's trying to help me, it's a crazy situation. We don't really know. It's an issue with my SUV and the adaptive part for the chair in the SUV. And he just said, you know what? I just want to thank you so much for being so patient and calm and understanding. And I thought, well, what are my other options? My other option is I could yell and scream and do what? Get worked up and angry? That doesn't help me. That doesn't help the guy on the phone. That definitely isn't going to get my problem fixed. But I think we don't see that because when we're in it, we're so worked up, we're so overwhelmed, we're quick to respond out of fear and anger that then we spiral and we forget that the other person on this the other side, whatever, if you're on the other side of the counter, other side of the phone, whatever the case may be, like they're also battling something that could be just as bad, if not worse, than what we're battling in that moment. And they're going to work while they have a 10-day-old baby at home and a sick husband, right?
No, I agree. And this conversation has definitely not had enough. The anger that you feel and people just give it so often. And it doesn't take much to simply smile. I remember times where I was working fast food and a lot of people around me were angry and I'd be the one person to smile and the people that were coming in would just be like, "Oh, it's so nice to finally see that going on here. It's so nice to finally see someone that's welcoming with a smile." And it's so easy. It's free. I always say being nice is free. It's something you could do and it's true. You never know what could be happening behind the scenes for someone. So to be just that one thing in their day that could have possibly brightened it, just from something so simple as patience or a smile. It's something that really should change. I think that a lot of people should have a little bit more love in their hearts because it feels better. It even feels better to be a little bit happier. It feels better to not be super angry. It feels better to be relaxed and other people feel better when you're showing that you feel that as well.
My husband once told me that, oh, you only volunteer because it makes you feel better. Or like doing this, it makes you feel better. And I was so offended in the moment where I was like, no, I'm doing it because I truly, genuinely want to help. And he's like, yeah, because it makes you feel better. And we got like this whole argument about it. And over the years, the more I thought about it, and I'm like, I mean, what's wrong with that though? Right? Like I took such offense to it and I thought there's nothing wrong with feeling good about giving back and serving your community. Like why was I so offended and upset that he was saying this to me?
I definitely think it's the way it sounds. It sounds like, no, it's all for you. It almost makes it seem like it's selfish to want to do good. But it's everything copacetic. It all works together. There's nothing wrong with making other people feel good, and there's nothing wrong with feeling good for making other people feel good.
Yes, 100%. I will say this is the first interview I've had with one of my Sash sisters where in my head I really and I'm laughing because I think you're gonna laugh too as soon as this comes out of my mouth. Oh my goodness, is just thinking about pageants and how they're misconceived and it's like we all just want world peace. And I'm laughing because I'm like, holy shit, that it kind of is true, right? In our own way, in our own community, we are trying to make communities better because we want to have more positive, thriving communities. Oh, world peace. Yep, that's it, isn't it?
Such a generic answer, but it's kind of true. Yeah, we all just want world peace. We want it to be better. I mean, what more could you possibly want?
Oh, I'm gonna be thinking about this, laughing about this a lot now. So I hope others are enjoying that as well because I think it's true. I've met so many amazing women doing so many amazing things, and I'm just so excited to be able to support you on your journey and follow you and see how much you're going to be able to accomplish in the next 5, 10 years. It's so uplifting to be surrounded by a lot of other women who just have these massive goals and want to make changes. I know we've talked like all over the place and a little bit in a circle, referencing back to like hamster wheel circle, but I definitely want to give you some time and space as we're wrapping up our episode here. If there's something that we haven't covered that you want to make sure our listeners hear or some final thoughts.
I guess final thoughts that I have, just of the overall conversation, of course, is just to take the time to really get to know other people's background. Take the time to step out of your comfort zone, maybe. And you never know what you could truly find out. There's a lot going on every single where, and it's always wonderful to know something new, to learn something new, or to do something new. So that's something that I definitely encourage because you never know where these situations can take you.
I completely agree with that too. Is just like you said a minute ago, you never know how far a smile will go or how much it can change. So I think it's so beautiful. I can't wait to meet you in person in Chicago and get to see your big, beautiful smile in person. And again, just support you on this journey of life.
Yes, and I thank you so much again for this. This is super incredible what you're doing and being able to hear people's stories. I know has to be super rewarding. So thank you so much for having
Yes, according to my husband, it does make me feel good.
me.
I'm just grateful for you and your vulnerability and your honesty, being able to share part of your story with me and our listeners. And you never know who's able to help when we share our stories. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.